Hi everybody. Looks like I jumped the gun a little bit on the last video and I said we were going to move on to lipids, but there's a couple things I need to add. On your notes we have this diagram. So this shows two amino acids. So this is the amino acid glycine and this is alanine. And these two monomers are going to come together to make a polymer. So this is two amino acids bonded together. And you can see that if we kept going we would get what's called a polypeptide. The reason it's called a polypeptide is because this bond right here, this bond that forms between the carbon and the nitrogen, that's just called a peptide bond. All it is what's called a dehydration reaction, which means water is released. So a hydrogen here and an OH here, that's going to get ripped off and go away as water and leave behind this here. Okay, and so if we keep adding more and more amino acids onto this chain, we're going to get a polypeptide. Eventually, if that polypeptide gets long enough and folds into the right shape, what's going to happen is it's going to become a functional protein. Okay, and so a lot of times the first thing that happens, it kind of coils up like this, and then it'll fold back on itself, and eventually it's just going to be kind of this glob, right? And that's going to become either, remember, muscles, nails, surface cell markers, enzymes, it could be whatever. But if you look to the root of what a protein is, it's basically these tiny amino acids, okay? And so let's move on though to lipids, okay? Okay, so lipids contain the atoms carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen here, all right? And we know lipids to be fats, and fats are our major long-term energy storage. Okay, so we get more calories per gram in lipids compared to anything else. And if you remember from chemistry, anytime you make a bond, usually it takes energy to make bonds. And when you break a bond, it releases energy, okay? And so as you break down, as your body breaks down all the pieces of this fat, it's going to release energy. And so any lipid is going to be composed of this. This molecule is going to be a single glycerol with 3 fatty acids, okay? And so let's look a little bit more closely at what this looks like, okay? So you can see that this is just a big, long hydrocarbon. All right, so this whole part, each one of these bonds here contains energy that our cells can use. And so you see that over here, this is the glycerol part here. That's the backbone that holds the whole thing together. But you can see that most of it is just this non-polar, just kind of very boring chains here, okay? And so there's actually a couple different types of fats that you might be familiar with. There's these kind of hard fats like this. You might find this type of fat in like salami. These are solid at room temperature. And these other kinds of fats are liquid. And so there's a reason why these sit here at room temperature, liquid versus solid. And so I want you to think back to that game Tetris you guys played on your computers. All right. You get probably really excited when a piece came down that's like this, right? Or a piece that came down like this. Those were really nice to work with. You could kind of stack those, okay? And everything fits so neatly, and it's so satisfying. But then they would send you a piece that looked like this. Oops. Remember those pesky pieces? Whoops. Yeah, we didn't really know what to do with those, and those would create these funny spaces, and it would make it so you can't pack everything very closely together. Same thing happens with these fatty acids. You see, this is just a really long chain. Everything's straight. So when you have a few of these stacked together, it's just going to pack together and just, you know, if you can imagine these fat molecules, they are just stacked right on top of each other, and they're just going to kind of get real close together. Whereas in an oil like this, so this is an unsaturated. Okay, so unsaturated means that this part here, it's saturated. That refers to the saturations of the carbon with hydrogen. So here, there's the maximum number of hydrogens, okay? So you see there's 4 here. If we double bond, though, well, according to the Honk rules, we can't have another hydrogen there. There'd be too many bonds around carbon. So if there's a double bond there, it's unsaturated. It doesn't have the full amount of hydrogens that, a single bond would give you. Now, at the same time, this double bond creates this kink, okay? So see how you can see here? These are areas where we have double bonds. And because of that, it's kind of like getting the funny shaped Tetris piece. They're not going to be able to stack close together, and they're going to be really mobile as a result. They're going to be able to, jostle around. So it's kind of like a moving truck. If everything's closely packed together, nothing's going to really move during transport. Whereas in an oil, everything's kind of sloshing around because nothing's really stacking too close together. Okay, and so they're both about the same calories per gram. There's not one that would make you fatter than the other one, but there is a problem with these saturated fats clogging your arteries. So not only do they stack well on each other, they tend to stack in your arteries and could possibly lead to a heart attack or stroke or something like that. All right, now let's see. Pretty easy molecule to not memorize, but like just recognize if I showed it to you. You just kind of look for these 3 long carbon chains, okay? It's going to look a lot different than these little guys, right? So these little guys, you want to look for this nitrogen, okay? There's going to be some funny things like this, if I give you these, but just look for that amino and carboxyl, and then you'll know it's an amino acid and part of a protein. All right, whereas this just kind of looks like a big, 3 big hydrocarbons. All right, so that's fats for you. More about that in class. Next video is going to cover nucleic acids.